Alright, this is Robert with Cruzbike, and today we are going to take a look at the V20c as relation to the fit on the bike, with a particular focus on the amount of tiller that you have on the handlebars. Alright, so what is the tiller? The tiller is specifically the amount of tube on the back side of the pivot clamp versus the amount of tube you have on the front side of the pivot clamp. Alright, let's try to make sure we have the proper amount. We're going to have our tool kit. We're going to have our torque wrench, since we're dealing with the V20c. And out of our Cruzbike toolkit, we're going to need two 5mm Allens and a 4mm Allen wrench. Okay, so here I have the V20c set up pretty good for me. I have a decent amount of tiller on the back side and the front side of the handlebars. We have the measurements that we want to deal with are the X seam, which is here from the pedals to our hips. That's a fixed number. We also have to deal with another fixed number, which is the length from our heel to the top of our knee, which is going to set our handlebar here. Now that's where we get into the discussion of the amount of tiller. So we're going to have this boom and slider, which can move in unison back and forth, but also independently. Okay, let's take a look at this V20c, which I've already preset for my fit that I prefer. We're going to slide down into the seat. Now note my arms and also my legs. So I'm going to have a little bit of room at the handlebars. We don't want to be hitting, obviously. I also have good extension. I like to run in just slightly. We have a little bit of knee bend there, so that's good. Now let's look at the arms. So my arms are at a nice neutral position. I have a lot of power when my elbows and shoulders are lined up with my body, and it still gives me room to turn and pivot. And here are a couple angles to look out for. We would like our upper arms to become parallel with our body, and that should result in a nice angle for our upper arms, like this. When we have this proper angle with our arms, we're able to push forward and pull when we need to, because we're not overextended, and we're also not too close to our body where we don't have any strength or control over that tiller effect that it has on the handlebars. We can still sit up as well, so we can get up in the seat when we come to a complete stop. Okay, so this is a good balance. So we have good arm position for forward and backward movement, and the position of those handlebars then gives us a lot of control over that tiller. Alright, so let's make an adjustment and put it out of balance, where we're going to have too little tiller. So when this front end moves, we're going to have less control over the handlebars. Because whenever we push forward, that tiller wants to go the other direction. So the length of that tiller, particularly on the V20, since we're so reclined, makes a big difference in how the bike handles on the road. Okay, so while I'm adjusting this boom with our two 5mm Allens for the pivot clamp and the 4mm Allen for the boom clamp and the chainstay clamp, let's talk about the tiller here. So when we have the handlebars too close to us or too far away from us, it makes the impact greater on the front end. So we either have the front end moving too much, where the front end can get away from us back and forth, or if we have too much tiller on the back side of the pivot clamp, then we have too much control with our hands and we have no strength. So we're all T-Rex armed up against our bodies. So if I set this far forward, I can still fit it. I'm toe pointing a little bit, but look at my arms, they're dead straight. So technically I can still pedal this bike because I have not changed the distance from the pedals to the handlebars. So I'm still going to have clearance at my knees. The problem is I've greatly reduced the amount of tiller on the back side of the pivot clamp. So I can't really turn forward. I'm kind of locked into position. So here with my body, my arms are at a much straighter angle. So the straighter your arms get, the less control you're going to have over that front end, because you have absolutely no ability to leverage the handlebars as opposed to when they're closer to your body. Now again, all this is going to depend on the geometry of your body. Some people have longer arms and some people have longer legs. So the important thing is to get the angles right. So I see a lot of setups like this where people feel that they're really aerodynamic. The problem is that they don't really have a whole lot of control over that front end. So you got to remember, the Cruzbike is a moving bottom bracket. So you want to maximize that amount of control you have over that tiller effect on the front end. And when my arms are dead straight like this, I have less ability to control that front. It's too far away from me. It's like trying to hold a heavy weight farther away from your body. Alright, so let's bring the tiller back in and look at kind of the opposite effect of having too much tiller. Okay, so now when I get in the bike, it's a little tighter. It's a little harder to get in and out. I've extended the boom out so I have the proper leg length. We still have room here, but now we have much more room. And now my elbows are going to start falling below the level of my back. So once I have that tiller in too close to me, and I've even seen it further close, we're going to start dropping our elbow. And what's going to happen then is we don't have a whole lot of leverage on the other direction. So your arms really are idealized for strength at that kind of where you can lock your elbows in at the side. When you have too much tiller and your arms are up close to you like this, it's also much harder to control because every little bit of input you put into the handlebars is amplified on the other side. Particularly when you have to shorten the distance in a turn. So what we're looking for ideally is that proper amount of tiller. And if you adjust your fit, if you find the proper leg length for your X-seam, and then you can play around with that length of tiller, you'll find the proper amount where you can really lock your arms in and feel like you have a nice, neutral, even control. And as always, we always going to use our torque wrench here to torque down all of our fasteners once we've found our ideal fit. Now, we also want to make sure our handlebars are adjusted properly. So we want a nice neutral position for our arms. We don't want to be kinked down like this. That's going to be very uncomfortable on your wrists. It also reduces your amount of leverage. We also don't want to have those handlebars way up here in the air, because that just doesn't seem right. We want a nice neutral position where when we're pushing and pulling, we're going straight into our arms. Now again, this could change depending if you use different handlebars with a different drop or a different curve, then that handlebar angle is going to change. Once we have that set, we can torque down our fasteners with our torque wrench. And off we go. Now we're going to have the proper amount of tiller. A nice, good fit for our X-seam. We can still sit up pretty well. We have a little bit of clearance here. For me, the proper tiller ends up being about 1.5 inches. We have a good heel clearance there. We have good, nice, straight arms. And of course, like, this is my non-scientific effort, but we are not close to us. We're not way extended like Superman arms. We're nice and in the middle. So we have good, strong leverage forward and backward. We can tuck our elbows in against our bodies, and off we go. Now the best thing you can do when you're playing around with your tiller and your fit is practice on a nice soft surface. One, in case you have a spill, you're only going to be falling in the grass, but it also kind of helps with the nuances of the steering. I like riding around on this nice hard grassy surface because it really lets me feel what the bike is doing at these lower speeds. And if you have good control of the bike at these lower speeds, then it's going to translate to good control at higher speeds as well. So if I experiment with the tiller, I will actually find out very quickly that when I have too much tiller, it becomes very twitchy at the handlebars. And when I have too little tiller, I feel like I'm swimming with my legs out too far to find the pedals, and the front end gets away from me. Also, if I sit up on the seat and I kind of do the Fred Flintstone method, when I have the right amount of tiller, it feels very neutral. I can steer the bike very easily with the handlebars. Alright, I highly recommend adjusting your V20c fit for tiller. As always, if you have questions, please feel free to contact us at support@cruzbike.com.